Number 1. Audrey Hale, the Nashville school shooter. Audrey Elizabeth Hale was 28 years old at the time of the Covenant school shooting in Nashville. Hale had once attended the school as a child, but years later returned with deadly intentions. On the morning of March 27, 2023, Hale armed herself with multiple weapons, including 2 assault-style rifles and a handgun. At around 10:13 a.m., Hale entered the Covenant school by shooting through locked glass doors. Inside were about 200 students and staff members. Within minutes, Hale opened fire, killing 6 people, 3 9-year-old children, Evelyn Deekhouse, Hallie Scruggs, and William Kinney, and 3 adults, head of school Catherine Kunze, substitute teacher Cynthia Peak, and custodian Mike Hill. The attack was fast and terrifying. Security cameras captured Hale moving through the hallways, heavily armed and wearing tactical gear. Nashville police responded quickly. Just 14 minutes after Hale entered the building, officers confronted and shot Hale dead, ending the rampage. In the days that followed, investigators searched Hale's home and belongings. They discovered journals and notes that described plans for the attack, along with maps of the school. The writing suggested Hale had considered targeting other places, but ultimately chose the Covenant school. Police described the attack as planned and deliberate, though they did not release a clear motive. The tragedy sparked national debate over gun violence, school safety, and mental health. Families of the victims were left grieving, while the community of Nashville mourned together. The shooting became yet another painful reminder of the recurring problem of school shootings in the United States. Number 2. Jaylen Fryberg, the Marysville school shooter. On October 24, 2014, Jaylen Fryberg walked into the cafeteria at Marysville Pilchuck High School. Just 15 years old, he was a freshman, well-liked by classmates, and known for his outgoing personality. But that day, he was carrying a .40 caliber handgun that belonged to a family member. Without warning, Jaylen pulled out the gun and began shooting. His targets were not strangers, but friends and relatives, people he had known and cared about. He shot 5 classmates at close range: Zoe Galasso, Gia Soriano, Shaylee Chuckle-Nasket, Andrew Fryberg, and Nate Hatch. Zoe and Gia died almost immediately, while Shaylee and Andrew later died in the hospital. Nate survived despite critical injuries. The cafeteria, once filled with laughter and chatter, turned into chaos as students ran and teachers tried to protect them. Within seconds, the shooting ended. After firing at his friends, Jaylen turned the gun on himself and took his own life. Investigators later revealed that Jaylen had been struggling emotionally. Messages and social media posts showed signs of heartbreak over a breakup and feelings of rejection. Some speculated that the attack was fueled by jealousy and despair, directed at those he felt had hurt him. The tragedy stunned the Marysville community. Jaylen had been considered a promising student and a role model, which made the shooting even harder to understand. Vigils were held for the victims, and the town came together to mourn both the lives lost and the boy who had caused it all. Number 3. Elliot Rodger, the Isla Vista killer. Elliot Oliver Robertson. Rodger was born in London in 1991 and later moved to California. He was the son of a Hollywood filmmaker, growing up with privilege but also deep personal struggles. By his college years, Elliot was a student at Santa Barbara City College, but he lived in isolation, spending much of his time online. On May 23, 2014, Elliot launched a planned attack in Isla Vista, near the University of California, Santa Barbara. Before it began, he uploaded a YouTube video titled Elliot Rodger's Retribution, where he described his anger at being rejected by women and his resentment toward men who were successful with them.
Well, this is my last video. It all has to come to this. Tomorrow is the day of retribution. The day in which I will have my revenge against humanity, against all of you. For the last 8 years of my life, ever since I've hit puberty, I've been forced to endure an existence of loneliness, rejection, and unfulfilled desires, all because girls have never been attracted to me. Girls gave their affection and sex, and love to other men, but never to me. I'm 22 years old, and I'm still a virgin. I've never even kissed a girl.
He also sent a lengthy written manifesto to family members and his therapist, outlining his hatred and his plans. That evening, Elliot first stabbed his 3 roommates to death in his apartment: Chung Yuan Hong, George Chen, and Wei Han Wang. He then armed himself with guns and drove through Isla Vista, targeting pedestrians and students. He shot and killed 3 more victims: Katie Cooper, Veronica Weiss, and Christopher Michaels Martinez. In addition to the 6 people murdered, 14 others were injured during the rampage. Police engaged him in multiple shootouts before he crashed his car into a parked vehicle. Moments later, Elliot Rodger took his own life with a gunshot to the head. The attack left the community of Isla Vista devastated. His videos and writings quickly spread online, sparking global discussions about misogyny, mental illness, and violence. Many pointed to his manifesto as a disturbing insight into the toxic beliefs that fueled his crimes. Number 4. Adam Lanza, the Sandy Hook school shooter. Adam Peter Lanza was born on April 22, 1992, in New Hampshire and grew up in Newtown, Connecticut. He was described as quiet, intelligent, but socially withdrawn. Over time, his struggles with mental health became clear. He was diagnosed with conditions including anxiety and Asperger's syndrome. Despite his challenges, his mother, Nancy Lanza, worked hard to support him. By 2012, Adam lived an isolated life, spending most of his time at home. His relationship with his mother had become strained, but she continued to care for him. On the morning of December 14, 2012, Adam shot and killed Nancy as she slept in their home. Armed with her legally purchased firearms, including a Bushmaster AR-15 rifle, he drove to nearby Sandy Hook Elementary School. At approximately 9:30 a.m., Lanza forced his way inside by shooting through the front glass doors. Within minutes, he began firing at staff and students. His rampage took the lives of 26 people, 20 children between the ages of 6 and 7, and 6 adult staff members, including Principal Dawn Hochsprung and school psychologist Mary Sherlock. The attack lasted less than 11 minutes. As police closed in, Adam Lanza turned the gun on himself, ending his life with a single shot. The Sandy Hook shooting devastated families, shocked the country, and drew global attention. Vigils were held worldwide, and the tragedy led to renewed calls for stricter gun laws and better mental health care. The pain for Newtown's families, however, remains immeasurable. Number 5. Nikolas Cruz, the Parkland school shooter. Nikolas Jacob Cruz was born on September 24, 1998, in Florida and adopted as a baby. His early life was marked by instability. His adoptive father died when he was young, and his adoptive mother, who raised him alone, passed away in 2017. Cruz struggled with behavioral problems and had a history of violent outbursts. He was diagnosed with emotional and developmental issues, and his troubling behavior often drew attention from school officials and law enforcement. By 2017, Cruz had been expelled from Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School for disciplinary reasons. Students and teachers knew him as a troubled young man with an obsession for weapons. He often posted disturbing messages and photos on social media, many of which featured guns. Despite warnings, he was able to legally purchase firearms. On February 14, 2018, Cruz entered his former high school armed with a legally purchased AR-15 rifle. At 2:21 p.m., he began firing in the hallways and classrooms. Within 6 minutes, he had killed 17 people,
Oh my God!
including both students and staff, and injured 17 more. The victims ranged from 14 to 49 years old, their lives cut short in a place meant for learning and growth. Cruz discarded his weapon and fled the scene by blending in with escaping students. He was arrested less than 2 hours later. At his 2022 trial, prosecutors sought the death penalty, arguing that the attack was premeditated and deliberate. The jury, however, sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Number 6. Salvador Ramos, the Uvalde school shooter. Salvador Ramos was born on May 16, 2004, in North Dakota and raised in Uvalde, Texas. His childhood was marked by poverty, bullying, and family struggles. Classmates later described him as quiet, often isolated, and the target of ridicule for his speech impediment and clothing. Over time, he became more withdrawn and angry, spending long hours online and playing violent video games. By 2022, Ramos had dropped out of high school and was living with his grandmother. In the weeks before the attack, he legally purchased 2 AR-15 style rifles and hundreds of rounds of ammunition, despite being only 18 years old. On May 24, 2022, Ramos shot his grandmother in the face, wounding her. He then stole her truck and drove to Robb Elementary School. At 11:33 a.m., he entered the building through an unlocked door and barricaded himself inside 2 adjoining classrooms filled with young students. For over an hour, Ramos fired repeatedly, killing 19 children and 2 teachers. The victims were between 9 and 11 years old, their lives cut short in an unimaginable act of violence. Law enforcement officers gathered outside but delayed entering the classrooms, a decision that later drew heavy criticism and investigation. At 12:50 p.m., U.S. Border Patrol officers finally stormed the room and fatally shot Ramos, ending the massacre. By then, 21 lives had been taken, and the town of Uvalde was changed forever. The tragedy sparked national outrage, not only over gun access, but also over the delayed police response. Families demand answers and accountability as they mourn their loved ones. Number 7. Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, the Columbine shooters. Eric Harris, born April 9, 1981, and Dylan Klebold, born September 11, 1981, were both seniors at Columbine High School. Outwardly, they were typical teenagers, but beneath the surface they harbored anger, resentment, and violent fantasies. Harris kept online journals filled with hatred and detailed plans for violence, while Klebold struggled with depression and feelings of rejection. The pair spent months planning their attack. They illegally obtained firearms, including shotguns and a carbine, and built propane bombs. Their plan was to kill hundreds of students by detonating explosives in the school cafeteria, then shooting survivors as they fled. On the morning of April 20, 1999, Harris and Klebold arrived at Columbine armed with guns, knives, and homemade bombs. The bombs failed to detonate, so they began their shooting spree around 11:19 a.m. They opened fire outside the school before moving inside. For nearly an hour, they roamed hallways and the library, shooting at students and staff. By the end of the rampage, 12 students and 1 teacher were dead. More than 20 others were injured. At 12:08 p.m., Harris and Klebold turned their guns on themselves in the school library, ending the massacre. The attack left an indelible mark on America. Images of terrified students climbing out of windows and running for safety spread across the world. The tragedy highlighted issues like bullying, violent media, and access to guns, but no single explanation ever fully answered why Harris and Klebold committed such an atrocity. Number 8. Pekka-Eric Auvinen, the Jokela school shooter. Pekka-Eric Auvinen was born on June 4, 1989, and grew up in Utøya, Finland. By his teenage years, he had become isolated and withdrawn, spending much of his time online. He was fascinated by violent ideologies and mass shootings, and he often expressed his dark thoughts in online forums and videos. On the morning of November 7, 2007, Auvinen posted alarming messages online, describing his hatred of humanity and his intent to act. Armed with a semi-automatic pistol that he had legally obtained just weeks earlier, he walked into Jokela High School, where he was a student. At around 11:40 a.m., he began his attack. Moving through the school, he fired at students and staff members with deadly precision. 8 people were killed in the rampage, including the school principal and several classmates. Dozens of others managed to escape, running from classrooms and hiding in bathrooms as gunfire echoed through the halls. The attack lasted for hours as police tried to secure the building. Auvinen eventually turned the gun on himself. He was rushed to a hospital, but died later that evening. Investigators discovered that Auvinen had uploaded a disturbing video to YouTube shortly before the shooting. In it, he posed with his weapon and declared war on society. The video quickly spread worldwide, making the case one of the first school shootings heavily tied to online content and digital footprints. Number 9. Anders Behring Breivik, the Norway mass shooter. Anders Behring Breivik was born on February 13, 1979, in Oslo, Norway. He grew up in a middle-class family, but developed a reputation as a loner with extreme political views. By his early 30s, Breivik had become deeply involved in far-right ideologies, obsessed with anti-immigrant and anti-Muslim beliefs. On July 22, 2011, Breivik launched a carefully planned attack. At 3:25 p.m., he detonated a car bomb near government buildings in Oslo, killing 8 people and injuring dozens more. As emergency services rushed to the scene, Breivik drove to Utøya Island, where the Labour Party's youth organization was holding a summer camp. Dressed in a fake police uniform, Breivik arrived with a rifle and handgun. Many campers initially believed he was there to protect them. Instead, he opened fire. For more than an hour, Breivik hunted down teenagers across the island, shooting them as they tried to hide in cabins, woods, or the water. By the time police arrived, 69 people were dead, most of them under the age of 20. Breivik surrendered without resistance. At trial in 2012, he admitted to the killings, but showed no remorse, describing them as necessary to fight what he called multiculturalism. The court found him sane and guilty of terrorism and mass murder, sentencing him to 21 years in prison, the maximum under Norwegian law, with the possibility of indefinite extensions. Number 11. Seung-Hui Cho, the Virginia Tech shooter. Seung-Hui Cho was born on January 18, 1984, in South Korea, and moved with his family to the United States when he was 8 years old. They settled in Virginia, where Cho grew up quiet and withdrawn. He struggled with severe social anxiety and selective mutism, which made it difficult for him to communicate with others. Despite these challenges, he enrolled at Virginia Tech, majoring in English. By college, Cho's isolation had deepened. Professors and classmates described him as disturbing and disconnected. He often wrote violent stories and displayed troubling behavior. Despite concerns, he remained enrolled and untreated for deeper mental health issues. On the morning of April 16, 2007, Cho began his attack. At 7:15 a.m., he entered a dormitory and shot 2 students. Instead of fleeing campus, he returned to his room, armed himself with more ammunition, and mailed a manifesto-style package to NBC News. Around 9:40 a.m., Cho re-entered campus buildings, this time chaining the doors of Norris Hall to trap students and staff inside. He then moved classroom to classroom, shooting dozens of people at close range. Panic spread as students jumped from windows to escape. In just 11 minutes, Cho killed 30 more people. Police finally broke through, but before they could reach him, Cho turned the gun on himself. The massacre left 32 people dead and 17 wounded, making it the deadliest school shooting in U.S. history. His manifesto and videos revealed deep resentment, anger, and a desire for notoriety.